What do you make of that interview?
Weird.
In what way?
I don't know, it just felt, again, weird, like, kind of, you've got games left. You know, Arsenal still play City, but you've told the whole world it's over, which is not like her usually. And then to kind of, I don't know, I find that quite weird.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I think we're normally used to seeing Emma so defiant.
And just the manager in that moment?
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's interesting the way that the sort of embrace just as they were coming out of shot, and it's almost like Emma needed Aggie at that moment. It's definitely a peculiar one, and you know, we've said about the psychology and how it must be affecting them all, and I think...
Does that deflect from the result and the fact that they've probably lost that title?
Well, we haven't answered one question about the title, and we've learnt more about Aggie. Well, we've spoken about Aggie throughout the season, and like we know Aggie's a top player, and for whatever reason we've ended that on a positive note, which is fine, but ultimately Chelsea what we've been told there was they've lost the title.
But haven't we seen that? The poem that we saw as a deflecting technique. We've had in these somewhat odd post-match or pre-match press conferences, interviews. Would you have expected that?
It's in terms of the announcement and, you know, whether it had to be made and people had found out and they wanted to do it on their terms is a different conversation.
Stand up and do you own that moment
and you
tonight?
look at it and even there, you know, Juliet, rightly so, is asking, you know, to Aggie, you know, did you want to do that for Emma? And that's been a consistent line of questioning throughout the season for these players. So it's not that they've dropped the ball per se, but it'd be interesting to see in 6 months, 12 months, whether they actually feel in hindsight, whether that's been more of a distraction than it should have been for them.
We've talked about previously what's got Chelsea over the edge when they haven't necessarily been playing well has been this united dressing room, has been that Chelsea together. She talked about it there, about the Chelsea badge and this club. Do you feel that now?
Like I said, I think this is, even though I have to agree with her, I do think it's City's, but I do think that, of course, they've had 4 titles and they've had injuries, but you're right. I've always felt across all the rest of the seasons there's been something in it, and I've always felt Chelsea could. I didn't feel that today. And whether it's fatigue or not, I always feel like Chelsea could find a way. I didn't feel it today, and I have to agree. I have to think there's something in the psychology of Jurgen Klopp and Emma Hayes that there's a lot of synergies. Both were in it before, both announced earlier they were leaving. There is some subconscious in there that they're not going to be there. And it is unsettling. Like you said, it might not come out now, but I don't think you can ignore the elephant in the room. That there's too many things that are uncharacteristic. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't
that's
feel
Emma
like
Hayes, isn't it? Like, or is that an excuse we often say? Oh, it's Emma Hayes. She does things differently.
I don't know. It just does. It feels different. I can't put a specific thing on it. It just doesn't. And I'm probably articulating it correctly,
No,
I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. I don't know what it is.
As well, for example, you know, the women's game differs still from the men to a degree in terms of Emma's probably having a big say or making those signings. Players go to clubs for managers. So then when your manager announces near on at the start of the season that they're leaving, how does it affect those players? The players that are out of contract, are they thinking, well, I felt safer with Emma and now I don't know where my safety is? And again, it's not that, you know, they're throwing the towel in, but these are all the things that you have to deal with as a footballer. And if you're unsettled, then that then manifests itself on the pitch, which I do think we've seen, along with the injuries that have obviously been a massive issue we can't shy away from.
Did she have a choice, though, if you think that the news about the job might have come out from from the US end rather than here?
Yeah, and look, that is one of the issues, and I think I alluded to that, and it's probably the same thing with Klopp. I think he wanted to sort of get on the front foot before everyone else, but whether it was coming out or not, I don't think we can probably get away from the fact that it has affected this squad in some way.
Sometimes when you verbalise, you know, your internal voice comes out, as it seemed to then, felt like she's saying, right, that's it, done. Now, you could argue, well, we're all sat here thinking, Manchester City anyway. So if she doesn't say that, she's daft because that's how it looks. But looking at the title race, City have still got to play Arsenal. That's not a given.
Who they didn't beat in the reverse fixture, by the way.
It isn't a given, no, and Arsenal have a lot to play into it. But, you know, like throughout the season, I just think City have been so good. They have been the consistent. The Alex Greenwood has been, Hemp's been phenomenal. Like, collectively, there's, you know, that feeling again. It just, you know, and Arsenal are going to make it very, very difficult. But that's a test for City. But I just think, I don't know, there's just a defeatist side to Chelsea already. And, like, that for me just says, here goes City. And I think they just got to grab it now, City.
What would you have wanted to have heard from the coach? Is what she's saying there, is that a reflection, do you think, of what the players let it go?
Potentially, and again, it's how they feel, what they've been through the last 3 or 4 weeks. You know, for me, and I don't know what she goes and says in the change rooms, because she might go in the change rooms and go, girls, right, pull yourself together. I've taken the pressure off you. Don't listen to what I've said outwardly. Trust me, we are still in this. She might go and say that.
She's never done that once, though.
Yeah, and I'm trying to play devil's advocate, but I agree.
She doesn't say something outside.
I want my manager to sit there and go, you know what, we've had a bit of a nightmare, I'm disappointed, but regardless, we are fighting till the end. We've had struggles with X, Y and Z, we're out of this competition, we've had injuries, but we are going to put everything to make sure that we go and win the WSL, and we've not had that.
I know what you're saying, I know the devil's advocate, but you're also talking to Man City. In anything you ever do, and one thing that she's always told me is, like, who else is listening? Like, City would have listened to that and gone, cheers, thanks. And
she said that previously. It's about your reflection on the outside.
Well, you have to, like, be also, like, everyone's listening. So, I don't know. It just feels a bit weird. That's all I'm saying. I can't articulate it.
I think I spoke before the game about that air of what they had in terms of being unbeatable. That interview in itself is something that I don't think we've seen before, and players around the league have seen. So they're looking at that thinking, the crown's fallen, we're in here, we've now got a chance, and that's a massive thing.
When we talk about these post-match, pre-match interviews with the press, those words, whether sometimes she feels like she's not been able to express exactly what she meant, do you think those words have affected the team prior to tonight?
Again, I don't think any form of controversy, whatever it might be, whatever anybody says, is not ideal, is it? You always want to just be able to be happy and go and play your football, and then all the noises does cause issues. But yeah, I don't know. I do think her leaving early has been a factor for the team, and I have to say, for someone that has been, you know, not flawless, has been on every matter and everything. We've always gone to Emma Hayes, and has always been, you know, I guess everyone's gone to her from every single topic, and Matt Beard even said it too in his interview. So you can't have a perfect ending sometimes, or a fairy tale ending. So
I think what we normally see from Emma as well, even in those tough moments, she's so composed, and actually I just think you saw quite a lot of emotion there. Just someone that's sad for leaving the club that they've been at for such a long time. That's been a big part of their life. They've built so greatly, and I suppose obviously it's not the way that she wanted to end, and it doesn't take away from what she's done and what she's built. But, you know, as a footballer, as a coach, in the moment, that's all you feel. It's hard to look at what you've done when you're in the moment at the time. And I think, again, in terms of that just being raw emotion, I think we've seen it, and this is where as well the women's game's going, where it is catching up with the men in terms of everything you say, post-match, pre-match and everything else in between. It's very much looked at and jumped on, whereas 10 years ago, I mean, we weren't even having pre-match, were we, in post-match 10 years ago? But that's where it is progressing, and again, that's the difference, is that young managers and players coming into the game now have to realise the impacts of what they're saying and how that's broadcast around the world.